Well, hello, people of Defend the House, and welcome back to another monthly big review roundup podcast. What's this thing called?
What the hell? The Big Roundup podcast,
The Big
number 4.
Roundup podcast number 4. We haven't done
did it.
one. Yeah, we haven't done one in quite a while because nothing really came out. That's a bit of an over-exaggeration. Nothing major came out except for like Mario Maker, which is just a level-making game. And that's kind of it.
Yeah, there were a few other things that came out
I mean,
but
of course,
are not worth talking about.
Yes, yeah. So we've been holding off until kind of a chunk of substantial releases. And September, and is any of this August? I think a little bit of August.
Control came out on like the 27th, so it's like,
A dribble.
September. Yeah.
A dribble of August, but mostly September. Today on the menu is Control, Gears 5. They dropped the Of War, didn't they? It's just
Yes, they
Gears
did.
5. Ooh, clean. And Borderlands 3. Some big ones. Some big AAA games.
A new
Let's kick
game,
it off.
like a new IP, and then 2 games from 2012. Re-released again in new shiny graphics.
Oh,
Hey!
wow. He's already
We'll get there,
starting.
though.
All right, starting in chronological release with Control, Remedy's latest endeavor. And I think at the end of, I can't remember if it was the Roundup podcast or if it was one of our other podcasts that's been posted elsewhere, but I remember saying that I didn't think it was going to be good. Where
And
did
I
I say
remember
that?
balking at that and being
Yeah.
offended.
I just thought it looked a bit shit.
What the fuck?
I thought the combat looked a bit rubbish.
Oh, Joe. But to be fair, you had just played some bad games, so you were in a bit of a downer of a mood, I think.
Maybe a AAA slump or something?
Yeah, I mean, Days Gone did many bad things to many people, so...
Jesus Christ. But, don't want to jump ahead too much, but I was a little bit wrong.
It happens to the best of us.
And that's always the best way to go, I think. I went into Control with, I want to say low expectations, because obviously you look at reviews and it was reviewing pretty positively.
Yeah.
But I will say that my expectations were surpassed and then some.
I would agree. I'll just say I was looking forward to it more than you were. That E3 trailer last year where they announced it, I was like, yes, sold. Give me this game. I'm on board. And I stayed on board and was looking forward to it. I definitely expected it to be solid and fun. I wasn't sure how much better it was going to be than Quantum Break. Quantum Break is like, it's good. It's a solid
We are
game.
Quantum Break defenders.
Yeah, Quantum Break's a good game. It's not
It is a good
amazing,
game.
but it's a fun, like, 10-hour, weekend game. But Control is so fucking good.
Control is really good.
I mean, my goodness.
Wow,
I did do a
Control is
review of it already, so you can my thoughts are sort of there to a degree. But yeah, Control is a very high-quality video game.
Yeah. A lot more than I was expecting. Where do you want to start?
I don't know. There's a lot. Like, there's
more going on in this game than I ever expected.
like structure stuff that's interesting, there's gameplay stuff that's interesting, and then there's the story and world stuff, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I
Maybe story and structure?
I guess.
It's
That game
quite
starts
a loaded
off
game.
like, so it was like playing, I think that game just like starts and is immediately just like, I was just like, yes, this game fucking rules. Like in the first 12 minutes of that game, there's so much cool style stuff and weird story stuff, and the little speech she gives at the beginning where she's like talking about the poster on the wall, and then behind the poster is like another world, and then the way it like cuts to Ahti, and
It's already dreamy, like right from the beginning.
Immediately, and then like 10 minutes in, you meet the board of directors, the board, and get your service weapon, and I saw some people say that like, Control has a slow start, and it does a little bit in terms of combat. It
Yes,
takes a
for
little
sure,
while.
the combat.
I would actually say the combat didn't fully click for me. I would actually say a lot of the game outside of the style didn't click for me until about the halfway point.
Okay.
Getting that levitate ability is really what made it all mesh together. Like,
for sure.
To just immediately do the opposite of what we were going to do, to swerve into the gameplay and structure.
Sure.
You know, it was like, okay, the story stuff's really cool. I was really enjoying it, and the combat and structure was all fine and fun. The combat's fun from the minute, you know, from the time you get your gun and started. It's immediately enjoyable. But getting that levitate ability, which is, as it sounds, which is very generous as well, really just made the whole thing click into place. Like, the combat went from being fun to being super fun. The exploration, I feel like all the side quests open up at that time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that wasn't just me then. And the whole game just sort of goes like, click, when the levitate is unlocked for me.
Yeah.
And,
but I think the side quests are designed that way because upon revisiting the areas with levitate, they play not completely differently, but they really open up and play in a different way than when you were just stuck on the ground, which I think was a really clever design choice.
Yeah. And there aren't like a ton of environments, but they get such good use out of them, you know, just by...
Yeah, what was that game you were praising a while back for clever Division 2, I think you were saying, has a really clever reuse of environments, and I would say Control has also clever reuse of environments.
Yeah, I mean, they're very different use, like, very different, obviously, but yeah, that was one that I had mentioned, and I think in the review I mentioned Batman Arkham Asylum as well, because that's sort of like a contained, sort of large facility environment that is really good about, you know, all those Metroidvania-like elements coming back. And now I'm lost again. I don't know where we're going with this. Control is weird to talk about because there's also a lot in Control that you don't want to talk about. And
yeah,
I suspect we'll probably do some spoiler chat here. That'll just get cut, so you don't actually have to worry about it if you're listening. But just for our own personal satisfaction to talk about some of that stuff.
Or maybe just lay out the basic premise of Control without major spoilers. Because Control's a really fun game. And it has some very, I would say, loose rules on the world building, which allows them to kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah.
There is a ton of lore and notes if you want to understand the context of everything that is happening. They kind of put a lot of work into allowing you to understand exactly what is happening if you want to. But there were certain times where I was reading documents that were explaining like how this works and how this works, and I was kind of, I loved all the notes and, you know, the backstory, but at times I was just like, I get it. The simple, you know, theme of this game is there is another reality leaking in.
Or multiple realities, maybe.
Multiple realities, possibly, leaking in, and it makes strange things happen, and it makes items behave strangely. And if you want, you can kind of just play the game with that context and that's it, and just have a really good time with it. But if you're a sci-fi nerd, you know, and you want a deep dive, wow, did they spend a lot of time putting the lore into almost every object in this game, which are called altered world items, I believe.
And objects of power. Oops.
Objects of power.
As they say in the game.
Oh, yes. Yes.
OOP number 5 or whatever it is. Oops.
Yes.
Yeah, I am, as you know, I'm a fan of lore in not just video games. I just find like broader world building to be interesting in most mediums when it's done well. It's interesting. And Control is like an absolute feast of fun, large world building.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job of just like, there's a lot that's left ambiguous and up to the imagination, you know, but you also feel like you know what's going on. I've seen some people say like, I had no idea what was happening throughout the whole thing. It's like, well, you're dumb. You're not paying attention.
Or you're not reading the plethora of notes that have been left around. Because the context of the game is you are in a building which is basically a governmental scientist facility where these people have been trying to figure out this reality for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And you're basically going through their...
It's basically like the other reality Fringe headquarters.
Yes.
From the show, where the other world has this crazy facility where they're like dealing with all this wacky shit that's going on.
And I think part of the fun is they haven't quite figured out what's going on either.
Yeah.
And it's very entertaining to read their theorizing and their experiments. And there's a really cold, utilitarian approach to how they write their notes. A lot of it reminds me of, it's a bit of a weird comparison, but I got some Ministry of Magic feel to some of the areas in this game from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And a lot of, how do I describe this? There's a lot of incidents out and about where normal people encounter these objects of powers, and it kind of reminds me of in Harry Potter films where they're trying to cover up muggles seeing stuff they shouldn't have seen, and they're trying to give these muggles context of these objects of powers, and they're trying to cover up this extra dimensional stuff, and there's some really violent and horrible things, and people die and they're cold, and it's just really, really good stuff.
Yeah, and they do a really good job of like swerving around in tone. Some of them are really funny, like there are some that are genuinely funny. Some of them are funny in a like parody, sort of bureaucratic parody way, where there's that one guy who like has to count the number and catalog all the airplane parts or something, and it's like there's 142,000 parts in this plane and I've tagged and cataloged all of them. And there's
you get
just
the desk jockeys and the apprentices who have a different tone in their notes and they're annoyed about the jobs, and you have the higher ups and their tone is different.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of good They bring a lot of cold sort of bureaucracy to the absurd stuff that they're doing in a way that just makes sense. Where it's like,
I love that.
It's still part of the U.S. government, sort of, right? Like this this organization, you get the sense that it's sort of this autonomous thing that exists as part of the U.S. government, even though the U.S. government sort of ignore what they do, it seems, and the Bureau of Control also deliberately makes it seem like they don't do much, and all that stuff is super fun, and I like that a lot. Parts of it are not figured out yet. Like the oldest house is just like, we don't really fucking know what this place is at all, but we have our whole offices here. and there's like signs talking about there's a lot of good posters and signage in this game as well, where it's talking about like, you're not allowed to have any modern technology. Like, here's the rules for internet usage.
And there's notes of people getting frustrated because the toilet has shifted and moved to a different area and they don't know where it is anymore.
Yeah, and there's some posters that are like, if you are in a room that has shifted, just please sit down and don't move, and we will find you eventually. Like, the world is like if Portal 2 and Inside were combined.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's like this absurdist, gigantic scale to it all, which both games have, right? Portal and Inside both have that, and Control has it. And there's like wacky, weird, kind of creepy shit going on like Inside. But then there's the Portal 2 aspect where it's like Cave Johnson, talking to the test subjects, and they're actually homeless people, and they're being tricked into all this, and there's sort of that absurdist corporate sense of humor to it all as well, which is really good.
It's a bit Black Mirror, a bit kind of parody of government styles.
Yeah, it's all of the notes are so good.
They really are good.
I don't remember the last time a game had such good collectible.
Me neither, because I think I'm quite famously pessimistic when it comes to reading notes in games.
Yeah,
just because it slows down the pacing, and I just want to be amongst the action, and I'm lazy.
So, well, and
I don't usually like them.
Too often they're not done well. Like they're I specifically remember us talking about it for probably
Prey?
Dishonored 2.
Okay.
And Prey, I was actually going to mention Prey as well. Prey is like, I liked the collectibles in Prey because they're all like completely mundane and uninteresting in a way that which is like really different for a game, where it's just like all the collectibles you find are just emails that people were sending to each other like they would normally. Which is, obviously not for you. But then I remember the Dishonored ones because it was like the first one you find is like 5 pages long, and it's about like the whale fat, and I was just like, this is too much. Like, it's too much info all at once. My brain doesn't process any of it. But the
no
ones in
giant
Control-
codexes or anything like that.
Yeah, and even though by the end of Control you have just an obscene number of documents to read, they're all so digestible. Every one of them is just like, it's one page. It's 3 paragraphs, and
Yeah.
And
I honestly believe that if you don't read the notes, not only are you missing out on a lot of the backstory, but it's like a fundamental pacing mechanic in the game. Like, if you're exploring, you go into a room, and I get excited because I see a couple of loot boxes, and then I see 2 notes. And if I wasn't reading the notes, it would be a much more repetitive cycle, gameplay-wise, I think.
Yeah, because the note collecting and exploration really, like, they do a great job of breaking up the combat, and it's not like you fight and then you spend a minute outside of combat. It's like 5-6 minutes where you're just sort of taking it easy, and then you have a little combat encounter, and then you go back to collecting and exploring. And yeah, if you were just breezing through all that stuff, not picking anything up, it would just be like almost non-stop combat, which isn't a bad thing. It's still fun, the combat, but when it's sparsed out like that, it's more enjoyable. And when there's context to the combat, when you understand sort of what's happening with the hiss and your gun and all that stuff is good. I actually realized, I think one of the games that did have good collectibles in the last few years was Horizon Zero Dawn. That was all. I mean, that was a game that relied probably too heavily on, video diaries and stuff, but they were all really good. Oh, God, there's so much stuff in Control.
Yeah. Well, we just talked about notes for 10 minutes, so I think...
Yeah, collectible notes. Jesus Christ.
But I mean, we've never done that before. There's never been notes in a game which I've cared enough to praise like this.
Yeah.
They're just great. The writing in this game is fantastic, and the world they have built is fascinating.
Yeah. Totally. And to dive into maybe something that I'll probably cut, they finally fucking have some balls to do something interesting with their universe, because video game universes are so dull most of the time, or if they are interesting, it's just the one universe which is interesting. You're like, okay, this is cool, and then they do something else, and you're like, man, I maybe, I don't know, should I just... They fucking... I'm so happy. Yeah, Remedy is so creative and confident, and like they have their own style and personality, and they are completely confident in it in a way that you don't see games do very often, especially games that are like look like and feel like a major mega AAA game, even though
usually see in indie stuff.
Yeah, even though by the sounds of it, Control is actually more of like a Hellblade sort of scenario where it was
double A.
Yeah, but it looks like a AAA and plays like it, and all of the world stuff is so good. Oh my God.
This is a really lazy word, but can we just talk about how cool Control is? Because Control is so cool.
Yep.
It's so fucking cool.
That was the feeling I felt. That was what I thought in the first 10 minutes with just.
There are so many moments in Control that gave me this just giant shit-eating grin on my face for 30 minutes at a time because of sequences that we won't spoil. So we should probably just go over the things that are amazing about the style. The game has an amazing use of color. It's really vibrant in places. We need to get into the tech stuff as well in a little bit. I do want to commend one specific thing that I think games maybe don't prioritize enough, which is the use of really good music.
Yep.
And a lot of games have good soundtracks, but Control has such cool music. It's such a lazy adjective, I know, but it's I don't want to spoil stuff. The use of music in this game is just so creative. And so exciting and varied and unusual. It sounds licensed, but it's their own really amazing stuff.
Yeah, there's that sound booth, right, that you find sort of earlier on, and it plays what I thought was a licensed song, and then they use another song later on, and there's the Finnish tango one, and they really do sound like hugely professional productions that they've licensed,
Yeah.
but they were written and composed entirely for the game.
There's one kind of like poppy rock song that appears on the radio, and I really liked it.
Yeah. It's really good. That and the tango song, the fact that that's the same, it's the actor singing it as well, and just like fucking killing it as well. Like that dude can sing.
Yeah. Special commendation for Dr. Darling.
He's so
performance throughout the entire game. He just
He's also
goes for it. He just does an amazing job, and his
so
little videos get more and more crazy as they go on in the game.
And the last one is maybe the best thing in that whole game.
Yes, it's so good. And then you have the little puppet, the Threshold kids.
Oh god, those are so fucking weird.
They're so good, and they're kind of like really scary and creepy.
They're really creepy.
Oh my god, this game is just bursting with creative energy.
Yes.
Which you don't really see
No.
in most AAA stuff, AA, whatever you want to call it.
And I also, like, games... most Western media, actually, I would say, is really bad at, like, diversifying their tone, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I tell people the reason that Korean movies are so fucking good is because they're unafraid to go from horror to comedy to tragedy to slapstick humor. Like, life is weird and full of all sorts of diverse tones. Like,
Yes.
like one, you know, someone dies and then you could be laughing 5 minutes later because that's just how people are, right? But like Western style of entertainment is like, this is a drama. There is no laughing aloud. This is a drama. And then the comedy is like, butt jokes, ha ha ha, no action and no drama allowed in this comedy. But then I feel like the more into Europe and Asia you get, they're just like, no, life is all over the place, so like let's do all sorts of things with tone, like the Wolfenstein games, you know?
Yeah.
And this, like, Control is kind of scary at times. It's very moody. It also made me laugh harder than any game this year, like the final Dr. Darling video.
Yes. I think the thing that reminded me most of Twin Peaks was actually the tone of Control.
Yeah.
Like, it's genuinely funny, really dark and eerie, dreamlike. It's very, I don't want to say, I feel like Lynchian is just like a really lazy way of saying it's weird, but it did remind me of Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah.
And its tone.
Remedy, like the creative director, Sam Lake, who's the creative director on all their games, I mean, those guys love David Lynch. Like, go back, now that you've watched a lot of David Lynch stuff, go back to Alan Wake, and, like, they're ripping off so much from Lynch. Like, not just Twin Peaks, not, like, Alan Wake is not just an insane Twin Peaks homage. They are, like, taking music from different David Lynch films, like Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. Like, those guys love David Lynch's style.
Cool.
And yeah, it is sort of Lynchian, I think, is overused. Like, people just see something weird and they're like, oh, it's so weird and Lynchian and surreal. And they're like, yes, that is correct, but it is sort of overused. But Control very much captures that in a way that most things don't. Like, most things, they get weird and you're like, wow, that's so surreal. But they don't do what Twin Peaks does, which is bounce around in tone like a fucking ping pong ball, you know.
And balance it.
And do it all well, yeah. Yeah, Control, the tone and style of it are amazing.
They're so good.
Just tremendous stuff, and I can't wait for the DLCs. Like,
I know.
2020 is stacked, and I'm just looking at it and being like, yeah, I know Cyberpunk, like, okay, cool, Dying Light, yeah, okay, where's that fucking AWE DLC for Control?
Yeah, it's weird that a DLC is one of my most hyped upcoming releases.
Yeah. It's crazy. And we haven't even talked about the combat, which is really fun.
Yeah.
You have a gun.
You do have a gun.
A bunch of pretty familiar powers. But they all feel really good together.
Yeah. We should probably touch on how awesome the destruction tech is in this game. Because that plays a lot into the feel of combat. The fact that these little shards of brick and wood and glass are splintering and flying everywhere. the destruction tech is really crazy. It feels almost next gen some of the time.
The tech in general is pretty wild in Control.
Yeah.
I remember feeling that way about Quantum Break. I played it when it came out on the Xbox One, which, the Xbox One is like not a very powerful console, or you don't associate it with being a killer
the original
graphics. One, yeah, the original Xbox One. And I remember like Quantum Break looks crazy as well. Like all of their time stuff and the like distortion of the environments is
like
just
the Doctor Strange
wild.
fractaling stuff.
Yeah, like that stuff looks incredible, and it did it 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And they've really advanced their tech for this because, yeah, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of cool tech things in the game. Obviously, there's also the RTX stuff on PC, which is like serious, like next generation rendering technology that actually runs well.
Dude.
But the thing the stuff that's available for everyone is that the destruction and the physics of everything are so good.
Yeah.
I would love to see like a tech breakdown of how that stuff works, like it. I
think for the entire 20 hours I played this game, I never stopped just punching stuff. Because Jessie has like a really powerful like force punch. It's basically part of her superpowers.
Yeah.
So her punch is like a huge like blow of wind. And it was just so fun to just smash the shit out of stuff. For the whole game, it never got old.
I think my favorite is when you do your little jump or you're hovering near things, everything sort of gently lifts up around you as you're just sort of flying around.
I think that's one of my favorite things about the powers in the game. This is like real physical, like uniformity to all the powers. They feel like one force.
Yeah. Just
it
being
really
used
reminded me, this is a weird throwback, but do you remember the film Chronicle?
Yeah.
I really liked Chronicle because in Chronicle they have telekinesis, but then there's a part in the film where they figure out like how to use that to fly, and they're not technically ever flying, they're just lifting themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Control has that weird grounded feel where she only has one force, and she's just kind of melding it and using it to do different things. And it just looks so, I don't know, it feels like she has one power, and she's just kind of learning how to bend it into different ways, if that makes any sense. And I really, really love that about the powers. It just feels so physical. And the little, destructibility when tiny fragments of stuff are getting caught in the vortexes and flying up with you. The tiny little touches just make it feel... It's like you can see the force field around her, but you can't at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and it's like, the little details of things floating, but also just sound effects as well add to the feel of it.
Oh, the sound design in this game. Oh,
yeah, the sound design for everything is amazing. But I never ever got tired of. I used levitate or the launch like just like a fiend for most of that game, because every time you grab something, the whole this like when you grab something, and it's like the universe is saying no. This is wrong. What you're doing with this power, and the universe is like screaming at you every time you pull something towards you. And it's just such a good sound. There are so many good sounds in this game.
Yes.
I loved just even pausing the game, and just the weird soundscape of the pause menu is good.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's one of the first things I said to you in Discord. I was like, wow, the pause music sounds really cool.
Yeah, the sound design is amazing. And then learning that it's one of the guys, or the guy that did Inside worked on this, is like, oh, that makes sense. The guy that did the sound design for that game, which sounded incredible as well.
Yeah.
There's a fucking lawnmower outside my window right now. Pissing me off. There it goes.
You gone?
There were a few... I remembered one thing about the combat that I was annoyed with was the fact that I was never able to upgrade Pierce.
Yeah, what was that about?
It's just bugged. It's just a bug.
That's a shame, because that thing is lethal.
It's fucked up. It just one-shots everything.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've really enjoyed gushing about Control, but when it comes to the combats, I do have a few complaints.
Yeah. The respawn system?
The respawn system is unnecessarily strict. Yes. I understand it takes you back to control points, no matter where. So the last one you rested at, even if there was one closer to where you died.
Yeah, that part's really dumb. It mainly only came up for boss fights, where it's just like, just fucking checkpoint me right outside the door, please. Please.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
I also found the guns to be... actually, I'm going to be more specific. I found the pistol to be one of the best weapons in the game.
Yep.
But it was quite inaccurate. And I don't know if I just got unlucky, but I never got the right mods. I got 1 plus 10% accuracy mod, and that's all I got for the entire game. And I kept aiming for the head, and I had like all these power-ups which amplified headshot damage. And it was just very frustrating to like empty a clip and not hit them. And I know people are just going to say you're shit, but I played a lot of shooters. I know when I'm hitting someone in the head and it doesn't hit. And that's because, you know, the gun has a little bit of inaccuracy in it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I was playing Gears of War 5 at the same time. I'm not going to jump ahead, but Gears of War 5 is very, very accurate and very generous. So maybe hopping between Gears and coming back to Control made the guns just feel like, come on, I'm clicking on this guy's skull, just pop his head off, because it would feel more satisfying if that happened. Just a minor little nitpick.
I didn't really notice that, but I played with a controller because I was playing it on my TV. So the auto aim sort of just does most of the work, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if this is a complaint, but I think the launch might be a little bit too powerful.
It really is. Like, I didn't use a lot of the guns. Like, I basically played the whole game with pistol and pierce, and occasionally I would use spin.
Me too.
And just haul ass around and not even, you know, do the aim. I would just stick the gun out and fucking shoot everyone in the face.
I never used a shotgun or whatever the last one was.
Yeah, charge and scatter, I didn't touch. They both felt bad. Yeah, the problem is, like, you get launch and then you find a couple of mods that are like minus 70% launch cost and plus 80% launch, you know, seize speed, and you're like, all right, I'm good.
Yep.
And yeah, launch is very, very powerful.
Yeah, and eventually it does not use a lot of your energy.
No, you can do like 6 launches in a row without recharging.
And they can kill like full armored people near the end.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can actually pick up people that have low health and just kill them and then chuck them back at other people.
Yeah, it's really good.
I don't know if it's a complaint because feeling powerful is fun.
Yeah.
But man, it really is powerful, and you get it very early on.
And I think the whole game has a bit of a weird difficulty setting or whatever. I don't know what the right word is, but it's like most of the game, there are no difficulty options, which is weird for any game nowadays, I would say. And then most of it is very easy in a way that's you're like, oh, it's not a complaint really. It's just you're just tearing ass through everything, which is fun. But then you get to like a side boss and it's like, this sucks. I'm just and like the big final fight, the last 2 big final fights, where you're going up the platforms or across the red area, they just go on for too long.
Yeah. When it comes to the end of the game enemy spam, I was at my breaking point when I got to the last wave. I was like, if there was one more after this, it would be too much. And then there never was. It was always the last wave where I was like, oh, okay, this is enough. This has been going for like 45 minutes now, and I'm exhausted, and there's no cover here.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe one wave too many. Not a huge thing in my opinion, but just like enemy spam feels a bit old when it comes to game finales. It feels like Last Generation where they don't know what to do, so they just throw 100 enemies at you. And it's just like, come on. I've been doing this for 30 minutes now. And the bosses, the bosses were not great. They were terrible.
Yeah,
not in design, may I say. Really cool design.
Yes. But they were just not fun.
Yeah.
Which I also can't really knock too much because I just think 99% of game bosses are terrible. Like, I don't know what it is with game developers, A, always feeling the need to put bosses in their games, and B, being so shit at designing them. I just don't think boss fights are fun in 99% of games that I've ever played.
I would say they were just not great. Like, I thought it was really strange for... what's the main one with the big eye? I think it was like F, the 4 something. I don't know what it was called. But it's really strange to make a mechanic where you're having to look up at a tall creature.
Oh, that thing, yeah.
And you also have to keep an eye on the ground because it makes holes in the ground, and you can't do both at once. So every time, I think I died like 4 times falling through the floor where I couldn't see an open hole. And it just doesn't feel fun to die like that when you don't see an obstacle.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, doesn't this come up in testing? Like, surely when people tested this, they died that way and they went, wow, that's not fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that a lot about a lot of things in video games where I'm just playing it, I'm like, was there literally no one like me in this entire facility that play tested this game before release and said, this part fucking sucks, you guys. We need to make it more enjoyable. And there were definitely parts like that in Control, but I also feel like there are parts like that in a huge majority of games.
I think it's the one-shot stuff, dying instantly, because that was also in the anchor fight. In the anchor fight, you would die instantly if you were hit by it, or maybe you were flying across between the platforms, you just didn't time it right, or you got hit and you fell down. Every time I died in a boss fight, it was never like, they didn't chip down my health, I would just fall in a hole. And then the respawn system is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I just, insta-killing you, Gears of War 5, we'll get to you. Insta-killing you in a boss is just not fun. You want to die from your own mistakes, not healing, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
The last generation, we've had the Soul genre. There's a lot of boss fights to look at now, and people really like them. I don't know. It just seems like a weird oversight at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think the game sort of has that Wolfenstein problem a little bit of it sometimes is just really hard to tell when you're taking damage, and you just sort of go from 100 to dead really quickly sometimes. I didn't die much in normal combat, but with some of the bosses, you get like take one hit from them, and you go from 100 to 10, and you're like, oh, I didn't even realize that I had been hit that bad.
But then you can like just pop up the shield and like charge into combat and get some of those health pickups. The shield is really cool, by the way, as well.
I did not use it enough.
Oh, I used it a lot. It just looks awesome.
It does look awesome, yeah.
God, it looks so good.
I didn't use it much because I was flying around launching shit at people. I wasn't taking damage. I wasn't on the ground.
You can shield while flying.
I know.
Okay.
But
it looks sick.
I was just launching shit constantly. I used that ability so much.
While we're doing kind of like a negative nitpicky area, let me just get pretty much the last complaint I think I have out of the whole game, which you covered in your review, which is there's no mod sorting, which is utterly bizarre to me. So if you don't know, in the game you get mods which change your gun, the attributes of your gun, better accuracy, blah blah blah. You pick up a lot of them as well. Like every now and then you'll check and you have like 40. And there's no sorting.
Yeah.
What a bizarre oversight when you're making a AAA product that has taken you years to not just put in sorting in mods.
Yeah, it's strange.
It's really weird. I don't do game design, but surely out of all the amazing things they made in this game, having a button that sorts the mod into types should be pretty easy.
I think that The Witcher 3 actually shipped without inventory sorting as well.
Very strange.
Anyways, Borderlands 3 also could use better sorting options for all that shit you get. Anyways, yeah, that whole system, I thought it was a little weird that it was there in the first place. It reminded me of God of War.
I actually I only ever really looked at the mods for like a specific encounter once, and that was for a I don't want to spoil it. Let's say a boss deep down.
Right. Yeah.
That was the only time I ever changed them. But I guess if you're playing on higher difficulties, then maybe
there is no higher difficulty.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Okay. Then I only ever use them in a specific circumstance once. Apart from that, I just was
to get more health, right? Like that's what I did. Was like that one or two boss fights. I was like, I'm gonna spec into health, and
I spec'd into shield, I think. For that boss deep down. But apart from that, it was just like headshot damage and I can't remember what I did with Pierce. Yeah, launch.
Oh, for Pierce, yeah. I found I had a mod that was like plus 50% damage that I just slapped on Pierce.
Oh, I didn't get one.
And it fucking ripped.
That sounds good.
But yeah, it was. Yeah, it is such a basic thing, and that whole system just felt a little It's good that it's there. I like that it was there, but it could have been fleshed out more and just cleaner presentation. God of War, I remember,
actually,
sort of suffered similarly from poor sorting
I did
options.
like the simple skill tree that they have in the game, because as you're going down the list, it's like just like 10% to melee damage, 10% to blah blah, but then there's these side things that jut out and they're additional skills, and you don't know what's coming, and you don't see them until you're quite close to them in the skill tree. And I would say all the new skills that get unlocked are pretty cool, and they change combat. And there was something really
like
exciting.
Augments to the base power, And
there's something really exciting about going down those trees and seeing one that, pokes out to the right, and it's going to, change your power a little bit. And it was a really fun thing to look forward to and work towards. And all those little upgrades to your powers were really neat.
Yeah. And also, I don't really know why that whole material collection thing is there. You find like the different materials that are used for upgrading your guns. Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know. You don't really have to deal with them at all. You just see when you have enough, you just buy the upgrade. But it's just like
validates the loot caches that are hidden around.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, but I don't know why they had to have like 9 different types of them.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's just sort of it's mainly just like a menu thing more than anything.
One thing I wasn't expecting from this game. It actually has some puzzles. There's some puzzle segments in the game, and I think they're pretty good, and they do not hold your hand. And I was surprised to have many puzzly parts of the game. And I obviously don't want to go...
I'm trying to remember a single one of them.
I don't want to go into specifics.
Oh, yes, okay, yeah. The puzzles for me were kind of... Some of them worked, and some of them were like, I wish you would just... Like there's one or two where if you don't see a thing, like you're on a computer terminal, and if you don't see the poster off to the side, then you'll never figure it out. And there were a couple of those where I was like, I had to go look up where to just get the information from, and then and I was like, oh, it was right there. I just wish there were a couple of times where I was like, just maybe light the scene slightly better, because my eyes just never spotted. There were 2 like that in particular where it's like you're doing the computer monitor thing, and I just was like, what am I fucking doing here, game?
I like them because they had some environmental aspects to them, like looking around.
Some of them were more interesting.
I thought they were cool.
Yeah, some of them were more interesting. I really enjoyed the exploration with Levitate as well, like finding all these secret rooms. I really enjoy any game where you... So I figured out recently, maybe not recently, but in the last year or so, why some of the immersive sims click for me and some don't. We've had this conversation many times in the past, and I've talked to like Prey clicked for me, but I don't really know why. I think I figured it out, and it's if you give me an environment that is pretty grounded and like realistic, and then I don't know what, like with Hitman or Prey. And Control to some extent, where it's like I'm just a dude with some powers in this like very familiar sort of normal modern environment, and that is what allows me to click with being experimental for whatever reason. Anyways, Control triggered that to some degree with the levitate ability, because there's a lot of I really enjoyed just sort of exploring and platforming around on things when it feels like you're not really maybe supposed to be able to, or it's not like they didn't put a giant blatant yellow grab symbol on it, so you're like, can I even get up here? And then you like jump off of a tree branch and you're like, oh shit, I'm up on this like 8th story balcony in the middle of Central Research, and there's a secret like hallway with a weird room at the end of it.
Central Research was really fun for that power.
Yeah, Central Research was... Revisiting that with Levitate was one of my favorite parts of the game, was just running around there, finding all these secret rooms. That stuff is fun. Yeah.
I think one thing we kind of skipped over when we were talking about the story, I thought this game was going to be very lonely. I don't know why. I always feel like immersive sims, you're kind of on your own. Maybe I was thinking about Prey, where you don't see... I think you see one single person outside a window in Prey.
No. But, there's lots of people in Prey.
Control has a really... Is that in Prey?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, there's your brother. Okay, anyway.
There's all sorts of people throughout Prey. Anyways, go on.
Oh, I don't...
I know what you mean.
Control has a really like eccentric and fun array of characters.
Yeah.
I hate to be pessimistic, but Jessie is kind of the worst and most boring character in the game. She's just
fine.
She's fine, but everyone else is really entertaining. I liked all the characters in the game.
Yeah. I think Jessie is a solid main protagonist. She's sort of like Aloy a little bit, where you're like, she's a bit bland, but she's fine. I don't mind
I do
her.
like that as the game starts, Jessie just kind of accepts what's going on to an unrealistic degree, and you're like, oh, she's just kind of stepping into this role. Okay, I guess she just takes it by the throat. And then they kind of add context to that later in about why she is so, I guess, willing to go through with all this crazy shit. Which was kind of cool to see unravel. But yeah, great characters. They all got great performances, weird voices, fun personalities. I was not expecting such a fun array of characters in the game.
That's sort of something I expect from Remedy, but had forgotten was a thing. Like, because Quantum Break doesn't have it, but Alan Wake is full of weird characters that you meet. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I expected it to be me alone in the environment exploring the whole time, which is the case, but it turns out there's like soldiers there and all sorts of characters you meet, and then once you start meeting them, I was like, oh yeah, right, Remedy, good side characters, right, Ahti, best character of the year.
Yes, he's so
also
good.
I realized Ahti sounds not exactly like, but they both come from the same part of Finland, I would say. He sounds so much like the hydraulic press channel guy. I can't unhear it.
Probably racist, but
they're both Finnish, so it's like, they probably come from a similar part in Finland, or I don't know, but it's this. I just kept expecting Ahti to say like, we must deal with it.
He is a fantastic character.
He's so good. I love that you can barely understand a word he says as well. It's like, there were a few times where I was like really struggling. It's like, is he speaking English? No, oh no, that's Finnish. Oh, there's English. Oh, okay. Oh no, we're back to Finnish again. Oh, okay.
Well, he speaks a lot of nonsense as well.
Also, yeah, everything he says is fucking gibberish. Also, more video games, maybe they shouldn't actually do this. Video games that make good use of live action video are just the best.
Yes. And FMV, bring it back.
Good use of FMV is pretty few and far between. But Control, not only does it use FMV super well in like traditional ways with the Dr. Darling videos, but it also uses live action video in like really interesting and creative ways by like incorporating the video into gameplay itself, like with all the Director Trench stuff, where like that's live action video playing in the game world in 3D, and is just makes for some really cool visuals.
Yeah.
And it's just really fun and creative, and I love it. I love
Me too.
Control. It's so good.
I think one thing we haven't really touched on is the setting. Because I'd say the first couple of hours it's standard governmental building stuff. I wouldn't say it's repetitive, but it looks like what you would imagine. But they do a really good job of creating these varied and like creative environments within the context of the world. Like when you first go to the Black Quarry, the Black Rock Quarry, there's the mold place. Again, the Ahti mission when you go underneath. There's just a lot of great set pieces, and I thought it was maybe going to be a bit more limiting. I think that was maybe some of my negative anticipation when I just saw her flying around in a government building. I was like, ugh, this looks a bit bland. And they do a really great job of making all the areas feel very distinct, but also having like context. Every place in the building has a purpose. It feels like Prey. I really like the grounded nature of the Prey space station. Like every area had its purpose, and Control has that, but it also has its really wacky, otherworldly areas, which are really fun to explore.
Yeah. I basically only ever watched like the first trailer and then the one at E3, this past E3, and neither of those, thankfully, show much of the environments, which was nice. I was glad to not be spoiled on some of those visuals, and if it had all just looked like Central Research, that would be fine. But yeah, between the quarry, the maze, Foundation area, like all these areas. Yeah, they branch out in a lot of visually exciting ways while all feeling like contiguous and like it all makes sense. It doesn't feel like you're suddenly in some weird other game, right? You're just like, no, this makes sense for this weird ass building that I'm in. And they do good with that. The ashtray maze looks so fucking cool.
Yeah, oh my god.
That whole sequence is so good. Even though I did die like 4 times. I was getting sloppy.
There's so many good things about the game. You know, I love all the objects of power or the altered world, whatever you call it.
Those quests were fun. Those side quests.
Yeah,
to find
every
all
little
of them.
item has its own personality and effects. Again,
I really
it felt
like the
very
traffic
magical
light.
to me.
I really like the I didn't know what was going on at first, and then I was like, oh, it's a traffic light.
See,
I
that's a
get
puzzle.
it.
It's a puzzle.
Yeah,
See, I told you some of the puzzles are good.
Yes, they were. You were right.
There's some really like magical stuff when it comes to the altered world. Not all of them are they're like violent and horrible. Some of them are kind of charming and funny.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're just chasing a rubber duck around a room, and I'm like,
that fucking stupid rubber duck. Quack quack.
And then there's some really horrifying ones, like the fridge, but that guy can't look away from it. That's like really
fridge,
scary.
Or also there's a safe, and the description is like, sometimes it just bleeds, like blood oozes out from inside, and we've scanned it, and there's something in there, but it's moving too rapidly, and we can't get a clear X-ray of it, but we're not going to open it. And I'm like, that's fucked up. I don't want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it might be a bit inspired by a horror game called SCP. SCP is a very old indie horror game where it was very similar, but these instead of items, it was monsters. They all had different powers, and you would find little documents describing their powers, and it was horrifying.
Yeah, so there was... I had never heard of the SCP stuff, and then was listening to a Waypoint podcast where they were talking about it. And the SCP Foundation is like a collaborative fiction website where people write short stories about weird entities or locations or objects. And Control, having never heard of it and then hearing it described afterwards, I was like, oh, Control really was like borrowed a lot of inspiration from this sort of collaborative fiction website.
Even the documents identifying the objects are very similar to how it works in SCP.
Yeah, so I didn't know that there was actually a game based off of that stuff, but that makes sense.
That game's scary, man.
Interesting.
I think there's a lot to talk about in this game, a lot of things to compliment. We should probably start wrapping it up before we start diving too deep.
Yeah, we have other games to talk about that are not as interesting.
I don't like to nitpick. I feel like I could have done with maybe a tiny bit more enemy variants, maybe a couple more gun variants, because I used 2, and maybe 1 more power, because it really did feel like I was just flying and launching stuff.
Yeah.
Usually I wouldn't nitpick so much, but when the rest of the game is so strong, it stands out a bit more because it feels like you were close to a home run. Like this could have... I don't want to talk about our top 10, but I'm just saying that if it was a bit...
There were like 1 or 2 things that stops it from being like a perfect 5-star game.
Yes.
And giving Outer Wilds a run for its money.
Yes. I wasn't going to say it because I didn't want to, but yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. Like, it was so close.
Yeah.
So, I don't like to nitpick, but when a game is so good, you notice the blemishes just a little bit more.
Yeah, I 100% agree with those few points. Like a few more enemies, a few more guns, and I also thought it could have used 1 more power of some sort.
Yeah.
But
those little...
at the same time, like the journey through is just is so good.
It's such fun, creative world building. It's fun sci-fi. It's got amazing style. It's just one of the most creative and cool games. Yeah, it's got really good gunplay.
Yeah.
It's just one of the coolest and most creative games I've played in a very, very long time. And you don't usually see them at this like budget or scale. It's usually the indie guys that are being more experimental. So it's just so fun to see it just at this scale. Close to AAA type of game. Totally. It was fucking phenomenal. I expected to not really be into it. And it is one of my favorite games of the entire year.
Yep.
Control's pretty damn good.
Agreed. You know what bothers me? Borderlands 3 and Gears 5 both reviewed higher than Control, and I think that's such fucking dumb bullshit. Game critics are bad. Take that, game critics.
Damn.
Well, this should be a quick, easy 2 chats here. Gears 5 and Borderlands. Gears 5, did you play Gears 1, 2, 3, 4, or Judgment? Great, yes. Did you like them? Great, yes. Play Gears 5, great. Okay, Borderlands, did you play Borderlands 1, 2, pre-sequel? Did you like those? Yes, okay, play Borderlands 3. Okay, bye.
We probably could just do that.
No. I need to vent a little bit about Borderlands.
Okay, so Gears of War 5.
Gears 5, please.
Sorry, Gears 5.
It's not about war. There's no killing anymore.
There's no war.
It's a
Gears
walking
5,
simulator talking game.
Yes, Gears 5 is a great poster boy for Game Pass. £2 for Ultimate Game Pass for 2 months. A £2 game is A-OK in my book. Gears 5 is... It looks really good. Yep. Amazing environments. It feels really, really good on PC. Yep. I actually think it feels too good on PC.
I played with a controller, so I can't speak to this.
The guns are so accurate, and the hitboxes are so generous. There's a mechanic in the game where you are leveling up this little bot called Jack.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't need him for the entire game, because all I needed was a Boltok pistol. What was that?
The
semi-automatic thing.
Markza or whatever.
The Mark Taz or whatever, that gun. Yeah. A sniper rifle. I never even bothered with like boom shots, the drop shots, because the headshot stuff was so good. And if I would shoot one bullet, do the active reload perfectly so it does more damage, use the ping from Jack, which gives you more critical hit damage.
Oh yeah.
It was just fucking carnage. Nothing stood in my way. I should have recorded it because it was comical. It would be like these giant guys with the shielded robots, and everything was just getting demolished. Nothing stood a chance against a mouse and keyboard.
I love that.
It was kind of funny. I will say it was very satisfying. It was not a difficult game, but I did enjoy playing it. It was fun.
Gears definitely, after 2, 3 onwards, on normal, that game's too easy. I played 4 on hardcore and had a really good time. I started 5 on hardcore and then was just not in the mood for any sort of challenge and dropped it to normal and kind of regretted a little bit because the Jack abilities get pretty decent the further in you get, and using them more. I that being said, so I didn't really use them much like you, but that being said, I probably will end up replaying Gears 5 this, maybe over winter.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a spoiler, but the last power is pretty fun, pretty goofy. The one beginning with H. Hijack. I'll just say hijack.
Oh, hijack. Yeah. Right.
That's a fun ability. I finally started using. There's some funny moments. You can pretty much take over anything, like the big boys, and some funny circumstances when you do that.
Yeah.
We should probably talk about the.
Probably just back up a little bit.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I like Gears of War. I've enjoyed all of them that I've played. I never played Judgment because it sounded bad. Every time a Gears game comes out, this is mainly about Gears 4 and Gears 5 because there was a gap between them, or between 3 and 4. Gears 4 and with Gears 5, I was like, as soon as I get back into it, I'm like, oh yeah, Gears games are I like Gears of War. I like the world. I like the characters. Kind of the auditory sounds trigger my nostalgia, like that perfect little when you hit the weird little breath when you hit the perfect reload, or the musical sting when combat ends.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
There's something nostalgic and likable about Gears of War, and I've every time a Gears game comes out, even 2 and 3, I didn't like 1 a whole lot. I thought it was kind of boring. But then Gears 2, I was like, man, this game's kind of great. It's dumb. The characters are okay. The gameplay's fun and it looks great. And then that just sort of reapplies to every Gears game. And I really like 2. 3 is amazing. 4 was a very solid, new developer coming back from a break. Debut.
We should probably clarify we are only talking about the campaign, since that's all we really touch.
Also, Gears of War is a single-player experience. I delved into the Horde in Gears 3 some for sure.
Horde is fun.
Horde is cool, but like we are exclusively talking about the campaign for this.
Yeah, I ain't going near that multiplayer.
Gears 4, we reviewed it. We both liked it. It was a fun, comfy, very basic game. It was a very safe game, I think, which makes sense. Gears 5 is also a very safe game. Gears 5, I really liked it.
Yeah.
I played it, each act I played in one sitting, so it was over in 4 sittings. It's like 10 hours. It looks fucking amazing on a PC. I played it on my TV and 4K HDR 60. Holy shit, it looks good.
It's very sharp.
It just feels so expensive. That whole game is just, I think partially because they've like probably reanimated a lot of stuff for 60 FPS. Maybe I'm just speculating, but it just felt obscenely expensive all the way through. And
it really did.
The gameplay is really satisfying. The visuals are fun. There's some good set pieces. It mixes things up ever so slightly. It's very minimally different from the other games, but I think because I've never been so attached to Gears that I just like I want Halo to evolve, but if Gears just sort of keeps doing what it does every 3 years, I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's 10 hours.
I think I
agree. It was $1,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Gears 5. It's fun. The end.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I pretty much agree with all of that.
I was expecting the open world stuff to be interesting.
Yeah.
And
it was not.
It's not. It's barely even an open world,
No.
They say that like, oh, we were inspired by God of War. I'm like, oh, that's cool. God of War did a manageable open world really well. Gears is just, you get your skiff and you drive to the mission. Yeah. And then you do the mission and then you drive for 30 seconds to the next mission. And
I guess it gives you options to skip side quests if you're not interested. It makes it a little bit flexible.
Oh yeah, I guess there are those like the water tower side quests.
And you don't have to do them if you don't want to.
It's one side quest per world and there's 2 worlds. So like I thought that was going to be a bigger change.
Me too, yeah.
And it's kind of poorly executed, I would say, like, but at the same time it didn't bother me. Like after 10 minutes I was like, oh, I see what the open world is. It's nothing really. That's fine.
Yeah.
I've said many times I don't mind parts of games where you're just doing nothing for like a minute or two,
Downtime,
and the skiff feels really nice. It looks really nice. It's very elegant to move. There's some music that plays sort of faintly in the background that I really liked whenever you're on your skiff.
Yeah, I think they were trying to go for like a Kratos and what's the little shit called? Boy, yeah. On their boat. Yeah, when they're having their little bonding moments on the boat. Maybe they were going for that on the skiff. You and Kat and Dell
and
Kate?
Yeah. Kate.
One of those two.
We really care about these characters.
My bad.
But, in practice, it's just you drive to the mission, you do the mission, you shoot, and everyone's yelling, come on, over and over again, and heads are exploding. And then you get, like, a minute of you just sort of skiing back and forth on your skiff, and it's all quiet. And I was just, every time I got back on the skiff, I was like, yeah, skiff, yeah, okay, that's enough of that. Let's kill some things again.
Yeah.
And it's like, objectively, like, on paper, you look at it and you're like, this is pretty underwhelming. Like, I don't even know why you bothered with this change. But in practice, I was just like, this is fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
There's still room for last generation style action games, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need those type of games in your library to break up the live services and the battle royales. Sometimes
and the endless
you need
open world, like 50-hour games.
And the 80 hours of Assassin's Creed. Sometimes you see a little taste of a simpler time.
Yeah, there's not been a Naughty Dog game for a few years. Call of Duty's campaign, the last one was World War II, which was 2 years ago now, and it was terrible. You know, we're a little overdue for like a nice, comfy 10-hour linear game, and Gears 5 is that. And I think Gears 5 is a much better game than Gears 4. Even if it's not as ambitious, and maybe not as stupid as Gears 4.
I actually liked Gears 4 a bit better.
See, I'm thinking back to Gears 4, and all of the levels are so boring to me in my mind. And I'm thinking about Gears 5, and I think there's just, I don't know, Gears 5 for me just flowed and was visually more interesting. And I think that's why I like it more than 4.
It's definitely visually better.
They're
But
just
I think the giant, ridiculous set pieces in 4 are superior, and that's one of my favorite parts of Gears of War.
Yeah, that's why I said Gears 4 is a stupider game, and
like,
that's
there's
a
that
compliment.
boss fight as well, the end of Act 2, which I fucking hated.
That boss fight in Gears 5 is very bad.
And then you have the end of Act 3 is really fun.
Yeah, and then it just sort of repeats that again.
And then the end of Act 4 is it just kind of ends. And
Act 4 is a mess. Not a mess, it's just like someone's like actively sawing the end of the game off while you're playing through Act 4. And then it just falls and the end of the game is just gone. And you're like, wait, the game's over? What the fuck?
And there's a really weird choice. I don't know what that choice was about.
I don't know why.
What are they going to do about that? Very strange.
Are they going to do it like Mass Effect and like pull your save for the next game? Like,
I don't think so. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. The story stuff in Gears 5 is strange because Act 1 is like a decent, you know, okay, Act 1 is like is so much better than Gears 4. Gears 4's Act 1 is so long and so boring in that city.
It's really slow, yeah.
Act 1 in Gears 5 is just like hits the ground running and is a really good first act of the game. The theater shootout is really funny. And it tells like a sort of self-contained story with JD being a piece of shit, basically.
Yeah.
Or not a piece of shit, but a bit of a shit.
Just like arrogant and, you know.
Yeah, and so like Act 1 was good, sort of self-contained, and then Act 2 is like probably the longest act in the game. And
there's like the crazy ice storm, which was pretty fun.
Yeah, there's the ice storm, and that you get to sort of wander around that nice little village at the first part, and there's interesting story revelations with Kate, and
that was fun, yeah.
The secret base, and I really liked the snooty trash can AI British robot. He was really funny. The line, the line where he says, where they're like, "What is required?" Like Kate's like, "What's required for me to learn these things?" He's like, "Minorly damaging your brain." That line, I don't know why it just killed me. And then Act 3, so you learn some stuff in Act 2, which it turns out you kind of learned in Gears of War 2, Act 2, I found out, which is weird. And then Act 3 is just like, we need to launch a rocket?
Yeah, Act 3 was weird, but kind of... The formation of that rocket was weirdly satisfying, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like all of Act 3 is basically you traveling around this nice-looking red sand area, finding pieces for a giant rocket, and like, yeah... I liked Act 3 as well, but from a story perspective, it's like the whole game is just, there's no story really. Like,
yeah, nothing really happens.
Like Gears 4 at least, you know, was introducing the new characters and reintroducing the old ones, and you're like, okay, this is good. There's good character moments here. Marcus screams about his tomatoes being ruined, and like that's fun. And Coltrane shows up, and it's still awesome. But then Gears 5, yeah, it's just like Act 1 has this little self-contained story. Act 2 has this self-contained story that I thought was going to be the whole plot of Gears 5 because it's major implications, and then they just forget about it for Act 3 and 4, and it's like, and then Act 3 and 4 is like, we need to get the Hammer of Dawn working again, and I'm like, wait a second, are we just going to forget about everything that you learned in Act 2? And they do, and it's just, yeah, by the end of the game you're like, okay, I learned one thing about Kate that I actually knew already because I read the wiki of Gears 4.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Not much happens. They don't get a lot done.
No, and it's suffering that Halo thing as well, where they're just repeating everything, right? It's just the same plot of the first trilogy again. It's like the humans are up against the wall again, fighting the Locust again, and I'm like, wait, I figured this all out at the end of Gears 3.
Yeah.
It's, but at the same time, I don't care enough about Gears to actually be annoyed by any of it. I don't know. It's always been a bit of a weird series, I think, in terms of relationship with it, where it's like I enjoy it, I like the characters, and then when it ends, it all just slides out my brain and I forget it all.
Yeah. There was definitely parts of Gears of War 5 where I had no idea what was going on because I had forgotten what happened in the previous Gears of War games. And I'm pretty sure I played the first 3 multiple times. I'm pretty sure I played 1, 2, and 3 more than once, and 4 wasn't that long ago, and I had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, I have.
And I watched a recap.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, so I think I'm realizing that Gears of War campaigns are enjoyable for the same reason as Call of Duty campaigns can be enjoyable, which is they're just disposable, fun, comfy popcorn experiences.
Yeah.
And you don't really think about anything while you're playing it, and you're like, this looks beautiful, it feels good, it's fun, I mildly am enjoying all of it, and then when it's over, you're like, wait, what was I doing again? And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's on Game Pass as well. Like Microsoft put out a statement saying that it was their biggest Xbox, or like original Xbox launch since Halo 4 in 2012.
Wow.
The biggest launch of the generation for them. All thanks, I would imagine, primarily to Game Pass. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I paid $1 or whatever it is. Maybe it was $10. No, it's less than $10 because I $80, converted my gold for a year or whatever. So it was $80 across 12 months, whatever that math is. It's like $7 or something, and it's like, well, I only paid like $5 or $6 for this game, so
yes, it's such
I don't give a shit.
Deal.
I can't really I feel like Game Pass, or rather Microsoft first party exclusives, are going to become hard to criticize, because it's like Gears 5 has problems, but I paid $5 for it and had a good time with it, so like I don't really care.
Yeah, it's like they overcooked my steak a bit, but I paid $5. So. But
it was still like a AAA prime beef steak, but it was medium instead of rare.
Yeah,
and $4, and I'm like, well, whatever. It's still tender and yummy, so I'll take it.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Do you have
No, I think you pretty much covered all of it. I will say that I do think the movement does feel a bit old at this point. Yeah. I know they can't really change it because the multiplayer is an important factor for a strange niche group of people who still really enjoy Gears of War Online, so they can't really change that. But you still get the times where you're trying to dive roll and you stick to a surface, you get the fuck off the wall, and then you try and get on a turret and you actually pick up a gun that's near the turret, and there's just some things that feel a bit heavy and clunky. Yeah. But I mean, it's a $4 steak, so
exactly. Especially after Control, where Control is so fluid and effortless in all of its movement and shooting. Yeah, Gears definitely. Yeah, the core of it is definitely feeling a little old, but it also still feels really good, across the board for the most part.
Yeah, the shooting is so sharp on PC. Jesus Christ, it's too good.
And it made me I'm sort of slowly starting to replay Gears 3, and I might end up playing it all. And
Gears 3 is really good. I think I replayed it 2-3 years ago, and it's really good.
Gears 3 is really fucking good, and it's in 4K now on the Xbox One X, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this game looks fucking unbelievable for 2011. But it also feels identical to Gears 5. Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same. The jack abilities are neat, but again, it's so easy you never use them. So if I replay 5, which I probably will, I'll play it on hardcore and probably get more use out of jack.
Actually, I do have one last point, and I don't know if you will agree with it. In Gears of War 4, I kind of feel like they just like shoved in Marcus, Cole, and Baird as like these remember these guys type of things. Like Marcus was there from the beginning, and then right at the end it was like Cole and Baird came in. It's like, here they are, here's the characters you know.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of liked what they did with the old trio in the new game. They kind of felt like they had more place in the world that made sense for their skills. And they're starting to really look old. And it's making me feel, I don't know, it made me feel kind of nostalgic. And also old. I forget that, we've been with these characters for 12 years. And even if, me and you aren't really that invested in the world or lore, we've still been following this journey for over a decade. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of weird to see bald Baird in a lab and Marcus mostly doing like political stuff and only joining in the combat every now and then. And Cole also doing his own thing. And I don't know, I just thought they did a really good job with the trio in this game and not really being like, hey, it's not a Star Wars thing. It's like, look, it's Han Solo and Chewbacca. They were just kind of doing their thing in the world and it made sense and they weren't forced in there. I don't know. I liked what they did with the old trio. It felt nostalgic and...
I actually completely agree.
Okay.
Like, I liked having the old characters come back in 4, even if it was... Marcus was overused in 4, but, like, his intro scene is really good. Like, he's like this, like, in this mansion, and he's like a gun nut hoarder, but he's also, like, growing his tomatoes. He's like Burt Gummer in fucking Tremors. Like, the guy with the house, that's full of guns.
Yes! I love that film.
And one of the best movies ever made. And he was like that in 4, and it was sort of funny. And then Coltrane and Baird show up at the end, and I was like, I can't get mad at the game for Coltrane showing up and being like, woo, Coltrane, baby. I'm like, yes, Coltrane, you are cool. Come back here.
But I'm not saying I was mad, but it was just a bit...
No, but you were right, yeah. But yeah, they are really well handled in 5. They're confident in their new characters. But they don't have to lean on the old ones so much. And the new characters are good. Like, Kate is a good character. Dell is, like, her and Dell being the main duo for most of that game was nice, because I'm like, these two are nice. They're good together. I like them. JD and Foz are not so good, but...
Foz was a bit like, I'm the dickhead, but you'll start to like me type of guy, and I was like,
And I never really did, but, he's... Kate and Dell, though, are good, and I like them.
Yes.
But yeah, Marcus is, like, he's the dad, literally, and... You, like, call him up on the radio and you're like, Dad, I don't know what the fuck to do. And he's like, oh, come on. And you, like, you don't talk to him too often, but you call him when you need an assistant or some knowledge. And he shows
he's
up
with you for, like,
times.
a couple of stages in the game, but not too long.
Yeah, he shows up a few times for combat. And, Baird is the scientist, and he never shows up in combat. And Coltrane is... fucking lunatic in his giant robot Jaeger suit, and they don't lean on them too much. They were really well done. I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember feeling that way and thinking they're doing good stuff here, and it's something I wish Halo would do, is just like move on from fucking Master Chief and Cortana. Like, they're not that interesting. We've had so many games with them. Like, have them fill a different role, and I think it's cool how they've transitioned the OG characters into what they would be, which is the leaders of the younger kids, and they are getting old. Marcus looks fucking old. Yeah, and there is a lot of nostalgia. Every time his voice comes on, you're like, Marcus. Yeah, there's that gruff, obnoxious Marcus voice.
Gotta love him. Gotta love him.
And like, I'm going to play Gears 6. I look forward to it in 3 years on the next-gen console. I hope they wrap it up, maybe. I hope, because Gears 4 and 5 both have shitty endings. Holy Christ. I really thought there was going to be... I really thought there was going to be another chapter at the end of Gears 5, but there wasn't. And I was like, when they pulled the camera out and like all the particles were flying, I was like, oh fuck, they're going to end this game, aren't they? And then they did, and I was annoyed. But whatever.
Yeah, it kind of felt like a Halo 2 ending to me.
Yeah, or Halo 5 as well, where it's like Halo 5 at least has some stuff happen in the story, but by the end of Halo 5 you're like, all right, let's just get to 6 already so that something can happen in this story. And Gears 5 was the same way, where you're just like, great, now I have to wait 3 more years to finally, like, for something major story stuff to happen.
Yeah.
But I also just don't care enough.
Yeah. Gears of War 5 is a good $4 steak, and I enjoyed it.
Yep.
Next.
Yep. So,
I don't know if you have anything more to say, but
no. I've said enough. 20 minutes is more than enough to talk about Gears 5.
Yeah, I think so.
I have no idea what the Horde mode is like. We'll try it eventually. It'll probably be fun, but I don't really care that much.
Me neither. I look forward to giving it a go because the gun combat on PC is pretty good.
Yeah.
Feels very smooth.
So yeah, the other old game that was remastered and released this month was brutal. Borderlands. And if Gears 5 is like a really good, inexpensive, overcooked steak that you're like, this is fine, Borderlands is like a mall hot dog. Where you're like, well, I could eat this for lunch, and I could have probably like 3 of these for lunch, and it's not good, but it's food, and I don't hate it.
Wow. Well, I should clarify that I played 2 hours of Borderlands 3 and just wasn't really getting any fun out of it. And I don't think it's because the game is bad, because Borderlands is just Borderlands. Borderlands is just good stuff. But I think I just played a lot of shooting stuff recently, and after playing Gears of War 5, which was also a bit of a trip down memory lane, playing another I think it was just bad timing and my type of mood. So I played 2 hours and I was like, I'm definitely not in the headspace for this game, and if I keep going on, I know I'm not going to get any fun out of it. So I was just like, I'll let Jameson do the hard lifting. So he did.
Yeah, so I finished it already. It was like 30 hours. It helped. It was a very, very gray and rainy and cold and miserable and quiet weekend. It was one of those weekends that I was just like, well, fuck it. I have nothing to do. I'll just play way too much Borderlands. And the thought that is in my head throughout all of Borderlands 3 is it's the most unambitious sequel I have ever played.
I did get that feeling from the 2 hours I played.
It's just so astonishing to me how much it's identical to Borderlands 2. There are obviously many changes between Borderlands 2 and 3, but they're very small. And
in comparison to what other franchises are doing in this climate of gaming, especially.
Yeah, like, so Borderlands 3 would have been cool if it came out at the start of this generation, if it was a launch title, or if it came out maybe in 2014, even if it could come out like a couple of weeks after Destiny, I think there would have actually been a rather interesting story to come from that in a way, and I wonder actually if Destiny would have been okay had Borderlands 3 come out at the same time, because Borderlands 3 feels like Borderlands 2 in that Borderlands 2 was identical to Borderlands 1, right? Except there was more content and very good quality of life improvements. And you're like, cool, this is good. Borderlands 2 is a good game. Borderlands 1 was a good game. There's nothing really else like Borderlands at the time. And the humor is hit or miss, but it's got personality, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. And this is a good sequel. And then they put the pre-sequel out, and no one cared about that. And I played like 10 hours of that, and the oxygen mechanic was garbage. But Borderlands 3, it's 2019, and it's been 7 years since Borderlands 2 came out. And Borderlands 3 is identical in every single way to Borderlands 1 and 2. And
well, not technically, but close.
I mean, fundamentally identical.
Well, the guns have alternative firing things, and
some of the guns. Some of the guns have an alternate fire.
personalities. Actually, a lot of the guns in Borderlands 1 and 2 had weird quirks, actually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, weird guns is not new. But the alternate fire
variance,
modes
I think, is better in the guns for sure.
So the guns are weird. The guns are more bizarre and... Well, the gunplay across the board is quite improved, right? Like, you go back to Borderlands 1 and 2 and you're like, ooh, this is floaty.
Yeah,
and a bit rough. It's not great. Like, so the gunplay feels good in 3. It's solid, fun, and it feels like the player movement is really improved. The mantling is nice. The sliding is nice. The gunplay feels good. But the guns are a bit weird. They're more... like, individually, they're more interesting and weird than they ever were in 1 and 2. But I actually don't feel like there's a ton of variety of guns.
Okay.
All of the weapon manufacturer types kind of all feel the same. Like, so like all the Jacobs guns, Jacob guns were like, they're the ones that shoot really quickly. They're just sort of old school, like Wild West revolvers and shotguns. That just their main quirk was they shoot really fast. And the Malawan guns in 3 all have a shield.
Yes, I got one of those.
And I don't know, I have found that I find a gun and I'm like, this is one of the ones that doesn't have to reload, it just overheats and you spray it with a squirt gun. And like the first time you get one of those, you're like, this is weird, this is fun. But then you just sort of realize that like every COV, that's the manufacturer of this one, COV gun is that. And you're like, it's another one of those.
Are you saying every gun we saw in the trailer is every gun in the game?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh no, really?
So there's TDR guns, which they either explode when you reload them, or they turn into a turret with legs and run around and shoot things when you reload them. There's the gun that you spray with a squirt gun, except that's the whole archetype for that manufacturer. Is just that's how all the guns work from them. You just spray it with a squirt gun because it overheats. There's the Malawan gun with a shield, and all those guns have a shield on them. And the Jacobs guns shoot really quickly, and yeah, I have found like I pick up a gun and I can tell just by the icon how it's going to shoot and what it looks like, in a way that I don't. Again, it's been a long time since Borderlands 2, so I could be wrong here, but I remember the variation of the guns being pretty wild, and in this it's just more like the individual guns are wilder, but there's less variation.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying.
Like substantially less variation. The more I play and the more loot drops I get, the more I just look at them and be like, it's another one of those, just gonna trash it. It's another one of these ones, okay, I like these ones, I'll keep this one and try it. And that's sort of weird and surprising to me, but not a major thing. That like more broadly, the problem I have with Borderlands is that it's just, like I said at the top, it's just so unambitious. Like, so much has happened in this genre since Borderlands 2 came out. And it's like they just didn't care. And they were like, la, we invented this genre, sort of, or we popularized it. We're just going to make exactly that again. And
I think for me, after my 2 hours, the wall I hit was I was quite enjoying the opening with the main quest, because I think the game looks good. I think the environments are good. There's some kind of cool scale to some of the buildings, and I did a boss fight and it looked interesting. But I think I hit a wall when I got back into a vehicle and was just driving around, and I picked up a few side quests, and it was like, go and search in this pile for an audio thing. And I was like, oh no, this is the exact same loop as the last 2 games.
It's identical. Every part of it is identical. The inventory is identical. The structure is identical. You get in your vehicle, you drive around the environment, you do boring-ass fetch quests.
I think one thing that's really come a long way in the gaming industry is side quests. A lot of game companies are doing quality over quantity when it comes to side quests. For good reason.
Borderlands is the opposite, for sure.
Well, back in the day, that was how people liked it.
Yeah.
But now...
And also, I sort of thought that, new generation, they'd be maybe open the world up more, like bigger environments, you know? Like, they promise all these different planets that you can go to, and I'm not expecting, you know, a No Man's Sky planet-sized planet world that I can wander around on. But it's still just like small little instance zones that you have to load between, and like a handful of them are big enough to drive a vehicle around on. But there's also a lot of them that are just like really linear. Like one of the planets you go to that was in the trailer, it's sort of pink, sort of mountainous, sort of Asian-y looking like temple planet that was in the trailer. It's just one corridor.
Oh.
It's just literally just one level on that map. And you hold forward and you shoot things for like 20 minutes until you get to the end of that level, and that's it. And that's the whole zone for that whole planet. And there's a few side quests in that linear corridor environment, and that's it. And it's like, it's been 7 years. It's 2019. Like, why aren't these worlds more connected or larger or more imaginative? Or why isn't there armor? Why is there not armor drops? Like, why don't you apply your weird, crazy gun tech to shoulder pads and helmets? Like,
I think I have two theories, and I'm not sure which one is right. My first theory is that Borderlands fans are extremely passionate, and they wanted to just give the fans more of what they want. And I think in a lot of regards, it has been successful. Most, I say like 80% of the reviews I've seen have been very positive. Like, hey, more Borderlands. I like Borderlands. I want to play more Borderlands. Here's more. This is great. And then there's people on the other side who are just like, it's more Borderlands and I think I've had enough of it. Theory 2 is Gearbox can't make any good games.
Yep.
And they accidentally made one good game and they're just remaking it because they don't know how to make good games.
I think
so
it's
they're just
both.
remaking Borderlands forever.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's like the fans want this one thing, and Gearbox only ever figured out how to make this one thing, and the money has run out, and it's like, well, we need money to make our other shitty games that we're going to make for some fucking reason, like Battleborn or Aliens. And we need to make we need to fill the bank vault back up, so let's let's make Borderlands 3. Okay, let's fuck it. We'll do it. We'll make Borderlands 3. That's what it feels like. It feels like they didn't want to, you know? Like, it feels like they're just doing it because they had to. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I haven't had a terrible time with Borderlands 3. You know, I played a lot of it in a fairly short period of time and enjoyed parts of it pretty decently. The first 15 hours were a slog. The character skill progression, characters do not, I mean, the one character I played, the gunner Mose with the mech, she does not get interesting at all until like 15 hours into the game. Mm-hmm. And so that was a slog. But then once it starts getting interesting, it like, it's a quick ramp, and it's like, oh, now I'm super overpowered and my bullets all just explode constantly, and I can sprint with my gun out, and I recharge ammo and grenades, and, you know, and I can shoot nuclear bombs with my mech, and you're like,
nice.
All right, this is absurd, and I'm having a good time. But then if I like take a break or have one part of it that sort of, if the experience gets like shaken at all, like if there's a bug or anything gets in my way, I'm like, ugh, I'm closing this game. Fuck this game. And yeah, and then now that I've beaten it, I'm like, why should I bother like finding the cool guns?
Yeah.
Like, because, and I know people will get mad, but like, Destiny exists, you know, and Destiny has always, to me, felt like the logical evolution to Borderlands in a lot of ways, where it's like we're taking first-person shooting and we're making it, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, I don't know, ongoing, right? Mm-hmm. We're making it a thing you can stick with for years, and it's the same as The Division 2 for me now, where it's like, all right, I beat it, I had an okay time, and now I guess I'll wait for DLC and I know Destiny's the same way, right? But like, there's something about the fact that the character and world in Destiny are all ongoing. You know, there's like actual end game content that's interesting. Borderlands, it's like I beat the game, and then I guess I'll just grind like crazy until the DLC pack comes out in December, which I'm not going to do. Like, I'm never going to play Borderlands again, probably after this weekend. Mm-hmm. There's just something about the structure of it that is like, it's fun to play through the campaign, and then when it's over, I'm like, okay, I'm done now. I never will play this game again. And I was that way with Borderlands 2. You know, I got to max level and then never played any of the DLCs except for the Tiny Tina weird like board game DLC, which was pretty interesting. But it's just so Borderlands.
Yeah, I mean, I like Borderlands a lot.
I do too.
There is a thing called diminishing returns. You can't just keep consuming the same thing for hundreds of hours without eventually being like, I would like something a bit different.
Yeah, like I played like 150 hours of Borderlands 2 probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. And a lot of Borderlands 1 as well.
I actually looked at our Xbox achievements because I have a memory of us playing a lot of that game together on the 360 when we were in school. And it turns out we got the achievement for completing all side content at the same time. So we were playing a lot of that game at some point.
Yeah, and I played 100 hours of 1, probably 200 hours of 2. And I played 2 hours of Borderlands 3, and I was like, I feel like I've been here before.
Yeah, and that's just what I'm feeling, is like, it just feels like more of Borderlands 2, except there's some quality of life changes, and, you know, this generation is almost over. Mm-hmm. We've got like a year left. It's 2019, like, so much has happened for like ongoing live service games, for loot shooters, for open world games, and it's like near the end of the generation, things are getting, the best games of the console always usually come out in the last couple of years because developers are figuring things out and taking risks and making these crazy games, and Borderlands 3 is just, it's just more fucking Borderlands.
Yeah, like, it seems to be very based on people's, I guess, resilience to playing the same thing over and over, or if some people maybe skipped Borderlands 1 and they've only played Borderlands 2, so they have less Borderlands under their belt, so it's less repetitive to them. If this is your first Borderlands game, you're probably going to have a really good time if you've never played anything like this before. I think your enjoyment of this game is going to be based on how much you can replay the same thing, or how much Borderlands you played in the past.
Yeah, and if you loved the old games and played a ton of them and were, you know, like, and I don't mean like 150 hours, I mean like 400 or 500 hours. If you're one of those people, you know, like all those people seem to be loving 3.
Yeah, and some people just play one game for a year.
Yeah, and there's a lot of smart changes to like co-op and scaling and loot drops for co-op and farming things. Like there's smart stuff in it, but it's just at the end of the day, it's just. Honestly, it's like, Destiny exists.
Whoa.
You know, I just find everything, like, the thing is, Borderlands 1 and 2 felt unique and original, and now I look at Borderlands and I think literally everything in this game is done better in Destiny. Mm-hmm. And yeah. Oh, also, the writing is the worst thing I've ever heard in any video game in my entire life.
Yeah, in the 2 hours I played, it seemed more quantity of it. Like people were always talking.
It's exhausting. After about 10 hours, I made the decision to turn off my volume, the dialogue volume, and just listen to podcasts or watch videos on my other monitor because it was insufferable.
Yeah, you can't tell the same joke for 10 years and still be funny.
It's not even the same jokes. It's like worse jokes than ever before.
You can't tell worse jokes for 10 years. And
Yeah, and it's not just like, yeah, like you said, there's so much of it. It's just relentless, constantly. And they've taken good characters from Tales from the Borderlands and made them awful. Like, Vaughn is fucking insufferable.
And I love Tales.
And Also, so much of the voice acting, like the delivery of the lines, is just them. They're just yelling at you.
Screaming.
They're just yelling their shitty, fucking terrible comedy at you. And then you notice when you turn the dialogue volume off, you realize that there is an enormous amount of you standing around waiting for them to finish fucking talking so you can get your next objective and get moving to it. And you sort of don't notice it as much when they're talking because you're actually listening to them. But as soon as you turn that off, you realize, like, I'm just standing here. I'm just going to stand up and walk into the kitchen and, like, do some dishes for 5 minutes and come back. And, oh, look, they finally stopped talking.
Is there any different, what's the word? Like, is archetypes the right word? Different types of weapons except for, like, assault rifle, pistol, shotgun. Is there, like, crossbows or bow and arrow or...
No.
Okay.
No, there are machine guns, submachine guns, shotguns, pistols, snipers, rockets. That's it. Yeah. It's exactly like Borderlands 2.
That's really weird.
There's not even a new slot in the inventory. There's not, like, you have your shield, grenade, class mod, and the other thing that I don't remember what they call it. Like, it's identical in every way. And yeah, so it's like, oh, also another part that really bothers me about it is, like, for a game that they took so long to make and they made it so identical, you would hope that it would at least be, like, really polished.
Oh yeah.
But it's not. The PC port is fucking bad, straight up.
I think the console stuff is rough as well, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a very shaky frame rate on consoles, which is not surprising. And the PC, like, it's the same engine as Gears of War 5, right? Like,
yeah.
I just finished Gears 5, and it looks unbelievable. It ran at a locked 4K 60 FPS on max settings. Like, that's crazy. It looks insane. And then you get to Borderlands 3, and I'm like, well, if I squint, it looks better. The lighting is better. There's more detail in some things. And it runs like fucking dog shit. I cannot hold a steady frame rate at 1440p in this game. I played a mode last night where it was dropping into the 30s.
Ooh.
On medium settings.
Oh.
At 1440p on a 1080 Ti. Like,
yeah.
Like the PC port is bad, straight up. And then I wanted to tell you a little bit about how broken and buggy a lot of this game is.
Okay.
Because I don't know if people have done a good job of expressing that, because it's...
I had one very strange interaction with one of the cars that was tipped over and it was freaking out and flying all over the place.
So I did their version of, like, the Horde mode last night. They've had it in all the games, you know. It's like the Circle of Slaughter or something where you drop down into the pit and fight for way too fucking long. I thought it was going to be about 30 minutes. It was 90 minutes long.
Ooh, wow.
Which was not what I wanted. In that 90-minute session, for the last about 30 minutes, it was running at about 40 FPS for me, which is not ideal. I had a screen shake bug that occurred probably 6 times where my screen would just start shaking and wouldn't stop for about 5 minutes, which was not nice. There's a recurring bug that happened in this, but it occurs in all versions, like all parts of the game with my mech, where I sometimes shoot my nuclear bomb, which obviously has a bit of a recharge time on it. The animation occurs and no projectile is launched and nothing takes any damage, which is really fun. There's a recurring bug also where you call your mech in, you climb into the mech, and then immediately climb out of the mech and the mech is destroyed.
Oh. Okay.
And that's your super, right? That's your ultimate ability. It's like 4 minutes to recharge, and you call it in at a dire situation, right? You strategically use this ability, and 20-30% of the time, I just climb in and then get right back out, and my mech is gone. So that's really fun and really sucks. And also during this long 90-minute session last night, that happened to me one time, and I got stuck in the environment and was unable to move until I fully died and respawned, which was really nice. There were some times in this mode where the whole game froze up for about 5 seconds, and then I thought, oh, I've crashed. Great, there goes all my progress. And then it would catch up and resume, which was nice. This mode really made the game feel like it was going to explode. It was like playing a Bethesda game. At the end of these 90 minutes, the last enemy literally the last enemy was a flying enemy, and it flew up and clipped into the environment outside of the map.
Hell yeah.
Literally the last enemy.
Oh my god.
Thankfully, after about a minute and a half, it unclipped itself and flew back down, and we killed it.
Okay.
But I have never been more ready to fucking throw a PC out a window than last night, where I was like, it took 90 minutes, and literally the last enemy that we had to kill got stuck in the environment for like 2 minutes straight. Which
Beautiful.
is really fucking awful. There's a bug also where sometimes, there's like corrosive, like green goo stuff, barrels of that. Sometimes if an enemy attacks you with that while you're in the mech, the green goo gets, like the screen hit effect gets stuck in permanently replaying and is stuck right in the center of your reticle and blocks the entire screen, and you can't see or shoot anything, which is really fun. I encountered probably 6 or more quest script breaks where the scripting would break, and I had to quit the game and relaunch it and reload it and hope that the quest resumed where it had, where it's just like this thing was supposed to happen and it didn't. So that, I think I saved 6 videos of that happening. One time I had to follow an NPC, which happens often, and you start talking to him, and he's like, follow me, and then I meleeed him, and he flew into the air and across the map.
Nice. That sounds fun.
And ended in his end position, where normally it would have been 5 minutes of following him to that position. I happened to punch him, and he just teleported to that place, which was across the map. To be fair, it did save me probably 3 minutes of walk and talk, which isn't the worst thing. And just other shit like boss fight music coming on screen and all this. It's just Borderlands 3 is an identical game that is also buggy as fuck, and I don't know how that's okay after all this time.
Yeah, I am surprised to hear about that stuff. I really expected it to be, I don't know, a polished AAA product.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say. It's just, it's the same game again. It's so obnoxiously written, and it's very buggy in my experience. And so it's like, sometimes I have a good time, sometimes I'm infuriated by it. And
I'm really disappointed to hear about the gun variants. That's kind of bummed me out, because I was planning on kind of keeping Borderlands 3 in the back pocket on the backlog and waiting for like a cold December's night where I haven't really got anything on the agenda. And I was going to be like, you know what, I'm going to shoot some shit in Borderlands, and I probably still will. I like to always give things my own go before, giving it my opinion. But yeah, the gun variants thing has really kind of bummed me out, because everything else I could see past if I was just excited for a wacky gun adventure.
Yeah, like you would think that a gun with legs, as in the trailer, would be like a rare and wild, thing. It would be like an exotic quest or something, like this crazy gun. Yeah. But no, that's just like half of the TDR guns just are that. They just do that. And it's like, maybe it's a shotgun, maybe it's an assault rifle, but it has legs and it just runs around. And I've gotten like 20 of them. I just trash them all, The gun that overheats and you spray it with a squirt gun, like I've probably deleted like 300 of those. Like, and the differences between them is just, this one's an AR, this one's an SMG, this one has different stats, this one has different stats. Like, the functionality of them are all so similar. It feels like there's, I don't know, 25, 30 guns maybe.
Jesus.
And then it's just different stats on them. That's what it feels like. And that could be just unlucky loot, I don't know, but
Maybe?
That's just sort of what it feels like. I got one gun last night that felt different and like one that I hadn't seen before. And that was the first one that I'd gotten in probably 10 hours that actually felt different. So yeah, that's sort of surprising to me. Yeah, it's I just think it's boring. It's just boring.
Yeah, it's more Borderlands next.
It's boring and uninspired, and lots of people will love it, and that's totally fine. And I by no means had a terrible time with it. But let's put it this way, originally the Destiny expansion was supposed to be out yesterday, which was 4 days after Borderlands 3 had come out.
Yeah.
If that had been the case, I would have put Borderlands down yesterday and never ever touched it again.
What a rip.
It's a kind of a bummer because like.
Yeah, I didn't expect Borderlands 3 to be... I didn't think Borderlands 3 could be disappointing.
Yeah, and when they announced it, I was like, yeah, I'm ready for Borderlands.
Me too.
I presumed that they were going to be doing, lots of new stuff.
And the trailers looked pretty new.
Yeah, and no, it's just like at the end of Borderlands 2, you get the key and there's like all these planets and you're like, wow, that's next-gen Borderlands planets. Like they're going to do these huge environments and... they'll hopefully like add armor stuff and maybe make a little more social, bring a little Destiny into it. Not that they need to, they don't have to, but it's fine if they don't. But then they didn't do anything. They did nothing with it. It's just another Borderlands game in every way. And that just kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
When you say it depends who you are, if it sucks
Of
or
course,
not.
yeah, of course.
Some people are going to be very excited to play more of the same.
Yeah, and there was a decent little chunk there where I was like, yeah, Borderlands, yeah. And then the bugs come in and I'm like, ugh. And then the frame rate's tanking and I'm like, ugh. And then if I turn the audio back up and hear them talking, I'm like, it's just yeah, I don't know. I'm just about done. I actually think because we were filming our dumb video where I was cheating already, so we could film that. I think I'm just gonna load up Cheat Engine and give myself just gonna fuck around with Cheat Engine for an evening and then probably never play the game again.
Yeah. I mean, you beat it.
And
fair.
And yeah, and I didn't have a terrible time with it, but it was pretty boring for the most part, I would say.
More like bored lands, am I right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Take that,
Don't
Randy.
you love how they even make a joke about how weird it is that people just keep playing the same shit for 7 years in the first hour of that game, and you're like, wait.
I heard him go, I can't believe people come back to the same world after 7 years or something. I was like, wait. Did you just...
What the fuck, Joe? We forgot to talk about the terrible boss fight in Gears 5.
Oh, yeah. No, we did mention it.
Did we?
Very briefly. Very briefly. I said it had a really bad boss fight at the end of Act 2.
It's so bad.
That's
How many times did it take you?
10, I think.
Yeah, I think that's
because he just kept one-shotting me with that big jump.
It's so garbage.
I hate. That's the thing we brought up in Control, is dying in one hit is not fun in boss fights.
The boss fights in Borderlands 3 aren't very good either. They're just...
No, I did one.
You get in an arena, and every boss is exactly the same in that you just take AoE damage from every single direction and hope you don't die. And you just have to shoot them really quickly. That's every boss fight. It's not very good.
Because I did the one with the speakers, and I was like, where the fuck am I supposed to be standing to not get hit?
Yeah,
I couldn't find a place. I went up this tiny little staircase. I was like, I guess I'm standing up here.
Yeah, every boss fight is like that. You're just like, there's no cover, there's no safe space. It's just a clusterfuck of AoE damage, and I'm just gonna hope that I can tank it. Yeah. So that's Borderlands. I really hope they don't make another one.
They will.
Because
this will probably sell 1 million copies, and
it'll probably sell like crazy. It also doesn't help that I don't know, there's so much stupid shit around the peripheral of Borderlands with Gearbox and Randy Pitchford and
the marketing was just sometimes less is more.
It was relentless.
It was 40 hours of the game was shown in gameplay. I was like, get it away from me. I don't want to see it all. It's kind of like Death Stranding being very similar at the moment, where it's like, I don't want to see all of Death Stranding.
Why are you putting out 2 hours of Death Stranding gameplay? The game's out in a month and a half. What are you doing?
I like the mystique around the game. I like that I don't understand it. Stop showing me the fucking game.
The wild thing about Borderlands is that they showed so much of it, and it's just the same game again. I'm amazed they got so many trailers out of it's a Borderlands game again. I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. If you love Borderlands, you'll love this game because it's well made for the most part, except for when it's not, I guess.
Borderlands is good.
It was good, yeah, in 2012.
It can be good, depending on if you've played 400 hours of it.
Yeah. Or 100 hours.
I probably won't be playing it ever, maybe? After this talk? I don't know. I don't give a shit. Who cares?
Yeah, and like I said, like, Destiny is the one for me, you know, right? Like, we've had that conversation before where it's like, these different games like Anthem, The Division, and all these things are trying to, like, steal the thunder away from, like, Destiny and Warframe. And WoW and a few others. And it's like, you know, I've never regarded Borderlands as a game that you play for more than a month. But it just sort of reinforced for me that, like, I'm so much more invested in what Bungie is doing now with the formula. And yeah, it's interesting to me how the same game, like Gears 5 and Borderlands 3 are share a lot of similarities, and it's interesting to me how one really clicks and one really doesn't, and they both are sort of these weird ancient feeling games in terms of ambition or structure.
Yeah, that is a good point.
It helps that Gears 5 isn't yelling piss and shit jokes at you every 5 seconds.
Yeah, and it has a story you kind of want to engage with, and it has set pieces that you don't see coming.
Yeah, there was one joke in Gears 5 that was from Dell in Act 3, or from JD in Act 3, and he says something about, like, I don't know, it was like, eat that ass or something, you locust. And it killed me. And he was like, wait, that sounded weird. And she's like, yeah, let's just move on.
Yeah,
and
what did he say?
I don't remember, but it was fucking hilarious.
He was like, we wiped that ass or something? We wiped that ass clean or something?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
I can't remember.
That one little line is literally funnier than all of Borderlands 3.
Because it was genuinely, like, quite awkward. It was good.
It was just like a dumb joke. It sounded improvised, honestly.
Yeah.
I just literally laughed about a Gears of War line more than I laughed through all of Borderlands 3.
Yeah, that was a good line.
That was funny.
So,
okay, well.
So, in conclusion, Control is fucking great.
Yep, and for $3 or whatever the fuck it is, Gears 5, not too bad.
Not too bad. All right, I'm going to have a little look ahead. What will we be talking about next time? For October, we have Call of Duty, Modern Warfare again.
Yeah.
Outer Worlds, and Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah, it might be a late, like an early November episode, I would suspect, because it's pretty late, releases. I mean, Destiny stuff, but we won't talk about that. Like,
please.
Ghost Recon, no thank you.
No.
Yeah, October is a little back heavy. Which is fine,
that's true.
Which is fine. More room for going to the moon and shooting aliens.
Yeah. But apart from that, guys, thank you for listening to yet another episode of the Big Old Fat Podcast, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
Thank you for
Big
listening.
Fat Turd Dick Podcast. Haha, what a funny joke.
I
should have yelled that at the top of my lungs.
Well, there's no Borderlands fans left listening right now. You realize that. So they're all gone. And they're all disliked and they're all pissed off.
And one of them is definitely Randy. He's going to drag us for this one. He's going to go on a Twitter tirade about Defend the House's skating review.
He's going to abracadabra you away, dude.
No!